If you get a win tonight, that will breed confidence going into those next 4 games against teams in the similar spots beside you in the table.
Where you from, Jim?
Ireland.
I like your accent. It's tough. I want to learn how to talk like that. But ask your question again. I was too much listening to your accent.
Welcome back to Ball Don't Lie here on Penn State Sports Night, episode 39. We're 1 week away from 40, but as you know, Hunter Pitcoff here with Matt Szczypiorski, of course. But we're going to be starting off this podcast a little bit on a not so great note, but here on Ball Don't Lie, sometimes we have to get woke a little bit too. We're not afraid to tackle these hard topics, but we're going to start off with Meyers Leonard. He is ruled indefinitely away from the team, according to the Miami Heat. He was caught on Twitch streaming live Call of Duty, and he used an anti-Semitic slur toward Jewish people. Basically, you can look it up or figure out what that is. I'm not going to say it out loud. First off, I want to shout out the Miami PR department because I thought they handled this really, really well. The Heat took a very hard stand. Meyers Leonard did, in fact, issue an apology, a written one. And then an NBA spokesperson, Mike Bass, they're going to try to gather all the information. And so we'll see if the league itself intervenes. Obviously, the Miami Heat did. We'll see if there's anything more to come. And maybe during this podcast, we'll see if anything comes. This is still a developing story. But also, too, just want to throw out there that the Anti-Defamation League, they reported that anti-Semitic acts have increased since 2016 after dropping over the last 15 years. And then there's also an FBI hate crime statistic report that shows that 60% of religious-based hate crimes in 2019 were directed towards Jewish people, even though the Jewish population in the United States is less than 2%. Matt, what were your thoughts when you hear about all this? How did you take it all in?
Well, first of all, I think his statement was bogus. He used the classic defense of not knowing what the word meant. But if you watch the video like I did, you can see him pause a little bit as if he was cycling in his mind what racist insult to say and which one was too racist and which one wasn't, and he decided on that one. And I'll bring up this point too because I made the connection. I think it's relevant too. He was one of the only guys in the bubble to stand for the anthem when the BLM turmoil was going on, and he said it was because he wanted to show support for the troops, which in my mind is ridiculous because the anthem doesn't represent just the military. It represents the country as a whole. But I digress. And all I'm saying is that I'm not at all surprised in a man that was that tone deaf to a situation like that around him, and all of his teammates were affected by that. And to end up being someone who is more likely than racist, like it doesn't surprise me at all. And I don't think that those two instances were mutually exclusive. I just don't.
Yeah, it's hard, when you build up a track record and you see that there's repeated offenses or something. I mean, I will say, in terms of sitting for a national anthem, you can do whatever you want. In my opinion, like it's your choice. I support those who kneel. I support those who stand. I will say Meyers Leonard does have an older brother who did serve, so I think he comes from a military background. I'm not sure that had anything to do with it or not, but nevertheless, looking at this situation alone, like you said, Matt, it's disgusting. This guy is, I didn't look up his age, but he's, probably in his late 20s, 30s. Like, you're not stupid. You know what you said. You know what it means. Don't act like, you're like a 15-year-old, that's just kind of throwing out words that you hear around at school. Like, what you said was wrong. He did take ownership. Would he have taken ownership had there not been such huge backlash? I don't think so. Probably not. Like, I think we both agree with that. Again, like I say, I applaud the Miami Heat. They immediately went on this. They had a strong statement, in my opinion, saying we don't accept this any way, shape, or form, and things like that. So I think the Miami Heat and their department were first class with it. So Meyers Leonard, a guy who barely plays, probably not. This could be it. The last straw of his NBA career. Who knows? Looking at it from a professional standpoint, I believe that he had a gaming partnership. I forgot the name of the brand exactly, but they did drop
FaZe Clan, right?
It
FaZe
might
Clan,
have been
like
something along those lines. I know someone dropped him. I did see that. I'm not huge in the gaming industry, so I don't want to throw out a name I don't know. Maybe I should have looked that up. That's on me. But yeah, I think in general, obviously the NBA has taken huge stands about Black Lives Matter and things like that. And we even saw during the All-Star game that they had the HBCUs and they were supporting their colleges and stuff like that, and all the resources and stuff. But I think when it comes to basketball and sports in general, it has to be an accepting place for everyone. So again, I credit the Miami Heat for acknowledging that and doing that, and I just hope that others follow too, because this even more than anyone, Matt. Deshaun Jackson even made like those comments about Jewish people, not the same way Myers Leonard did. He said other things, but it just seems like it has to be multiple ways. It just can't be let's be respectful toward one group of people or the other. Like it has to be everyone.
Yeah, at the end of the day, we're all human, man, and to be racially profiled, something like this, or even just a track of religion because it's not what you believe, it's not something that you believe in, it's something that's different from you, is ridiculous. And at the end of the day, like I said, we're all human.
Absolutely. And so like we said, we cover all the tough topics here on Ball Don't Lie. We don't run from anything. So that's our 2 cents there. But a little more lighter note, the Basketball Hall of Fame finalists have been announced, and it is a stacked class. You got Rick Adelman, one of the most successful coaches in NBA history, Lita Andrews, Chris Bosh, who did not make it last year, Michael Cooper, Yolanda Griffith, Tim Hardaway, Lauren Jackson, Marquez Johnson, Paul Pierce, Bill Russell as a coach. He obviously is already in there as a player. Also got Marianne Stanley, Ben Wallace, Chris Webber, and Jay Wright. Matt, what are your thoughts about this? I believe it's next month, or I think in May, that they're going to announce who actually finally got inducted. But it's a pretty stacked list, I'd say. Yeah,
definitely. And honestly, Hunter, I have a question for you here about this. So what do you think about the Basketball Hall of Fame being all combined into one? Like there's no NBA Hall of Fame. There's no College Basketball Hall of Fame. There's no WNBA Hall of Fame. It's just the Basketball Hall of Fame. Because I think it's kind of cool because no other sport does it that way. So I just wanted to see what you thought.
Well, there's football kind of does. It's like Pro Football Hall of Fame, right? Like
yeah.
All right. I mean, they kind of do. There is a College Basketball Hall of Fame though itself, I believe.
There is?
Yeah, there is, I believe. But it is definitely unique. It's always cool to see even the last Hall of Fame class, it was a stacked one. Kobe Bryant, Tim Duncan, Kevin Garnett. Then you throw in a Tamika Catchings in there as well. And it's kind of going to be similar to this one. I mean, Paul Pierce is his first time being nominated or being eligible to be nominated and has had a Hall of Fame career. He'll get in at some point. I really hope Chris Bosh gets in because he is in my opinion, a first ballot Hall of Famer. I love me some Julius Randle, but those comparisons need to stop. He's still got a lot of years to go before he can even be in the same class as Chris Bosh. Chris Bosh, one of the most disrespected players of this generation, in my opinion. Lauren Jackson, too. She's a hooper, 3-time WNBA MVP, one of the best players to ever lace it up in the women's game. So I'll give her credit and her flowers as well. Jay Wright, I think is already building a Hall of Fame resume. He did a ton at Hofstra, so Long Island represent, but also what he's done at Villanova, too, on a more national stage. So he's a fantastic coach. Bill Russell, too. He won some rings. He was even playing and coaching at the same time. Also was the engineer behind some of those Seattle Supersonics teams that went to the NBA Finals against the Michael Jordan Bulls. So it's a pretty stacked list. Again, guys like Tim Hardaway and Chris Webber, who knows if they'll ever get in or not, too. So it's an interesting list to have.
Yeah, it's definitely a deep list for sure. How many people are they going to accept to make to be the final nominees?
I think how it works is that you have to get a certain amount of votes. I think how it works. I don't think it's a set number, so I think it varies every year. Ben Wallace is an interesting name too. Someone in the Detroit Pistons teams, one of the best defensive players probably in the last 20 years or so. Michael Cooper also won a bunch of championships with the Lakers. So yeah, this is a very, very stacked list. I'm curious to see who ends up making it.
Yeah, definitely. So you said that announced next month, right?
I believe it's in May, actually. So
gotcha.
Months from now.
Gotcha.
That's when and I think the induction might be in June. But yeah, and also too, they never did the ceremony at all for the 2020 nominees, so they might combine it or something. I don't know. I don't think I've heard an announcement on that, but I believe this year they are going to do it. The 2021s at least. The class of 2020, because I said 2021s, now everyone's going to be confused. Anyways, though, let's look at the All-Star Game festivities, Matt. So Domantas Sabonis took it home yet again. for the big man winning the skills challenge. It's a little bit sad that these guards keep losing to these guys. Steph Curry, like we both predicted, ran away with the 3-point contest, although Mike Conley did give him a good run for his money. Steph Curry had to make that last money ball to win it. Anthony Simons, neither of us picked him to win. He did win the dunk contest. And then Team LeBron took home the All-Star game itself, and Giannis winning MVP. Matt, what were your thoughts about the whole weekend?
Well, ultimately, the All-Star game itself was kind of boring, in my opinion. There were some deep shots taken from Steph and Dame, which is pretty cool. And the target score thing was cool. Once again, I think they have the format right there. But the game itself was very meh. A lot of dunks and no defense, which is typical for an All-Star game. The dunk contest was also pretty underwhelming. Obviously, a lot of the circumstances were different with it being at halftime, so they had some time constraints. No fans being there and only 3 guys competing. This event just needs more juice, and by that I mean it needs stars and it needs fans in the stands. This is what they've been lacking for years in terms of getting stars to the dunk contest. Basically, what I'm saying is to get Zion to do the dunk contest. I think that'd be sick. And also, the 3-point contest was awesome as usual. Mike Conley was a shock, like you said, but Steph was a star. We both know it. We all know it. I thought it was the best event of the night by far. And then the skills challenge, I never really have any interest in that. It's pretty boring to me, honestly.
Yeah, that was pretty spot on analysis, Matt. The dunk contest, you did bring up a good point. I wanted to touch on as well, is that in the dunk contest, like it was only in like a 15-20 minute time frame. Like these guys can't really do all that much, and they can't really get exciting with it. I thought their dunks they were good. These guys definitely they had some good dunks in there, but it wasn't anything special or memorable for keeping it real. Shout out to Anthony Simons. I think he was like had the lowest odds of winning, and he did end up winning it, so that's cool. But yeah, and also the 3-point contest, that was pretty fun. It might have been predictable knowing Steph Curry was going to win it, but Mike Conley gave him a good run for his money. A lot of good scores. A lot of these guys, I thought, took it seriously, which is good. Probably the only event that happened. The All-Star game, I agree. The format is completely good the way it is. I like how they have it now, but it just seemed like Team KD just did not care at all. I think the Team LeBron won all 4 quarters, which is it's by quarter what you win. So that, is always not great. They won by 20. Quite frankly, I don't think these players really cared and didn't really want to play, to be honest. Giannis had a perfect game, made every single shot, most amount of field goals made in an All-Star game consecutively in NBA history. So congrats for him winning his first All-Star game MVP. But yeah, Matt, like we were saying weeks before they even announced it, didn't make a whole lot of sense to have the events. And that's unfortunately, I mean, shout out to the HBCUs that got money and stuff like that. That's the most important thing. And ultimately why they're having these events, which is good. But like you said, the events itself, it was very underwhelming.
Yeah, extremely underwhelming. And the whole thing was just so Adam Silver could get some more money in his pocket, get some more money in the league's pocket. As we say, the almighty dollar is what rules here. They got a lot of money from the TV contract, got some fans in the stands because it's down in Atlanta. But ultimately, though, it wasn't worth it. I mean, it didn't add anything. It was just meh.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing I did like leading up to it on TNT was some of the documentary series about inside the NBA. I only was able to watch the first 2 episodes so far on. It was mainly focused on Ernie Johnson, Kenny Smith, but those are pretty good too. So check those out if you're into that kind of thing. One of my favorite shows on the air. But let's talk about former All-Star here. Blake Griffin did get bought out by the Detroit Pistons. A little bit of old news, but this happened like right after we filmed our podcast. So go figure, always does. But he signed with the Brooklyn Nets. It's a pretty interesting signing there. Blake Griffin finally back on the contender. Probably going to be coming off the bench, though. What do you think about this signing?
Man, all that star power in Brooklyn just to stop Shake Milton, huh? All serious though, Blake to the Nets seemed blatantly obvious to me. Even if he doesn't start for them, like it seems like that will be the case. And even though he has definitely declined in play, they needed a big guy desperately, and he will certainly be an upgrade over Jeff Green as backup center. So I don't know if he'll play center or play power forward, but it's still just a big body that they needed. They were desperate for.
Yeah, I agree. This was a great signing. It's a low risk, high reward signing. Blake Griffin, clearly he does want to be there and he does want to compete and win a championship, understands that he's not going to be the guy and is okay with that. We have seen him have a down year. Maybe that's because he's just trying to play a little soft, didn't want to get hurt, because he's had injuries and the Pistons were going nowhere. But for Blake Griffin, good for him. He's back with his buddy, DeAndre Jordan, Lob City guys. Neither of them have the hops they once did, but that's okay. Still respectable NBA players. I thought this was a bit of a power move from the Nets, if you will, a needed one because their bench isn't great, but now, it's definitely improved with Blake Griffin there. Curious to see how they use him. Steve Nash was caught talking to him in Brooklyn. They, maybe getting some smoothies or something like that, and that nice little two top right there. So I'm curious to see how this one works out.
Yeah, I think him coming off the bench is probably better for the rotation. He might be one of those players that comes off the bench but ends up playing more minutes than one of the starters does. I guess it depends on who they're playing, maybe, but I think this is obviously an upgrade for them. And as you said, definitely a power move to Brooklyn. Just be like, yeah, we're going to sign him. We're going to add another all-star to our roster, and he's going to be making the vet minimum.
Yeah, that's true. Like I said, this is a low risk, high reward situation for Brooklyn. But look at the Utah Jazz. Probably don't have a whole lot of moves to make to do their contracts, but they did sign Ersan Ilyasova. Fits their team pretty well. This is a team that's one of the best 3-point shooting teams in the league, and Ersan with that weird hit shot he has, this is the perfect guy, I guess, for them.
Yeah, Ersan, the king of charges, man. He was on the process Sixers and the first Sixers team to make the playoffs in 2018. I've never seen someone so good at taking charges in my entire life. So I'm sure he will just make that Jazz team even more infuriating and annoying to watch. So who knows?
I mean, I guess you haven't watched Al Caruso enough because Lakers lead the league in charges taken. I'm just saying.
Sorry, they play at 10:30, Hunter. I'm in bed by that point.
Yeah, West Coast time, man. It was always a struggle growing up. But didn't always make my mom happy either. She's like, go to bed. I'm like, the Lakers are playing the prime TNT. Come on, Mom. It's TNT Thursdays. But yeah, why not? There's that whole Ersan Ilyasova theory, but let's not get here or there, I guess. But speaking of, the Utah Jazz and how they historically love just knocking out the Thunder out of the playoffs, Paul George, finally gave Damian Lillard his credit. It took a couple years to finally do it. So in case of y'all don't remember, Damian Lillard, hit that game-winning shot against the Oklahoma City Thunder Game 6 in 2019 and quite literally waved off the Oklahoma City Thunder. Paul George said that was a bad shot, and then basically they went to it on Twitter after the Blazers got knocked out of the playoffs, and Damian Lillard called them chumps and stuff like that. But after Damian Lillard hit quite a few half-court shots, including one to end the game, the All-Star game, if you will, Paul George quite literally said 2 thumbs up for him, and Damian Lillard said he doesn't really hold on to things that aren't that serious. This is probably one of the more juicy beefs, I guess, in the NBA, but now that's even taken care of too.
Yeah, that Instagram beef was pretty funny over the summer, man, especially when we didn't have much going on. That was pretty good.
Yeah.
But Dame doesn't have time to give a damn, man. You know that quote that lions don't care about the opinions of sheep? That's basically what Dame was saying, I think.
You dug in your bag for that one, Matt.
Yeah. I
like that. But let's talk about, one of our favorite plays. We talked about this a couple weeks ago where we were talking about our favorite announcers. DeAndre Jordan, the day he killed Brandon Knight on a basketball court, hypothetically, was 8 years ago today. This is being recorded on March 10th. So, Matt, I'll let you give the call to that because, that's one of your favorites.
Oh, what a monster jam by DeAndre Jordan. I love that. Oh, that was my favorite. But oh me, oh my. Oh me, oh my. Yeah, R.I.P. Brandon Knight, dude. Most unlucky NBA career ever. He just got crossed up by Kyrie Irving on national TV. He's getting dunked on by DeAndre Jordan. Why is he even in that position, by the way? Why was he standing underneath the net guarding DeAndre Jordan? How'd that happen?
He was trying to take charge, but I'm just gonna let him do his thing. I'm not trying to make it on SportsCenter for the wrong reasons. Let's just say that. But also, too, on a little bit funnier note, NBA and Modelo's are teaming up to create limited edition NBA Dynasty Oreo cookies. They announced that the Miami Heat are going to be on one of them. Hopefully some other teams are too. Me and Matt love us some double stuffed Oreos. Hopefully it's not on those single stuffed one. We're not taking that for an answer. What was your thoughts when you heard this news?
I literally wrote down, the only thing I wrote down was double stuffed or don't talk to me.
Yeah.
Give me some double stuffed Johns or don't talk to me.
Yeah,
dude, single stuff is just like the softest thing ever. Like, why would you want more cookie than icing? Give me some icing.
Yeah, no thanks. If I wanted to eat paper, I would just take it out of my printer. No thanks. Yeah, give me a double stuff, please, and thank you. They shouldn't even sell that anymore. I mean, come on. Like, who's ordering that?
Double stuff should just be the new regular stuff.
Yeah.
Start over from scratch, make double stuff the regular stuff.
I have something for you. I don't know if you knew this. You know that double stuff Oreos is only spelled with one F?
Yeah, that's whack. So when I was stoned, I didn't know whether to put one F or two F and stuff. But I guess I don't know if that still applies. But double stuff, that was one of those things that was like the Mandela effect, where it was like nobody noticed that it didn't have 2 Fs, but I noticed it when I was a young and looking at it. I was like, Mom, why does it only have 1 F? She didn't have a good answer for me.
Yeah. Yeah, I just wanted to bring that up because a lot of people don't know that. But I'm glad we really do take our Oreos seriously, Matt. That's what we're about here on Ball Don't Lie. But maybe I'll pull that out next time we're on a segment together. We'll eat some double stuffed Oreos talking about the NFL draft. Anyways, though, let's shout out the ladies here. It is International Women's Month, and the Raptors are going to have an all-women's broadcast on March 24th versus the Denver Nuggets. That should be a pretty fun game. So I just want to give a shout out to Megan McPeak, Kia Nurse, Kayla Gray, Katie Bernes, and Amy Adalbert. Shout out to them. The Raptors have always been, we would talk about how great their broadcast team is, their play-by-play duo. But the ladies getting in on it too. So again, shout out to them. Shout out to our Penn State Sports Night girls. Matt, you were in that TikTok with them for International Women's Day. So that's pretty cool. Just wanted to give them a quick shout out here.
Yeah, about time, man, to get an all-women's broadcast booth. Pretty cool. I'm sure social media will remain nice and civil for that. And all serious note, this is cool, and I hope that this isn't their only opportunity to do this. I also hope this isn't like a PR stunt by the Raptors because it's International Women's Month. But I like the opportunity. It's awesome. Yeah,
hopefully this is a trend we can see continue. And Matt, before we get on to our weekly players of the week, give the fans what they want. What's the motto here on Ball Don't Lie?
No team left behind.
Yep, not a single one. And players of the week, there wasn't a whole lot of games for us to look for. So I went really deep in my bag, Matt, but I know you don't always, but I'll let you go first because I always do.
I figured you went deep in your bag. So I gave the most obvious ones. I'm going to give the most obvious ones. They're deserved shout outs. So I'm going to start with Giannis Antetokounmpo, MVP of the All-Star game. Didn't miss a shot in the All-Star game, even though most of his attempts were dunks. You talked about the record earlier about how he set the record for most consecutive field goals hit in an All-Star game. He did hit a couple threes, though, which is cool, including a pretty sweet step back. He's got the hardware for 2 MVPs in the regular season. Now he's got the All-Star game MVP, which should help his legacy. Also, he was pretty funny mic'd up, which is player of the week material to me.
Yeah, I also love Reggie Miller when he shot. He's like, no. He's like, oh. Like he yanked it in. Yeah, I was like, up there goes his. I feel like once Giannis heard that he was perfect from the field, I think that's when he stopped shooting in the fourth quarter. He didn't get any shots up at all. So that was pretty funny. Shout out to Giannis. Definitely need that energy to make All-Star Game weekend good, especially when there wasn't a whole lot of bright moments this year around. But next on my list, I'm going to go with Swaggy Poole, a.k.a. Jordan Poole of the Golden State Warriors. He had a season high minutes in the last 2 games that the Warriors played pre-All-Star break. Scored 16 points and 26 points in those games. Made a combined 14 field goals, including 8 3-pointers. I wasn't the biggest fan of that pick when they made it a couple years ago, but I will give a player his props. They were, resting some guys, but at this point, the Warriors, they kind of need something to hit, and perhaps Swaggy Poole can bring that energy.
Swaggy Poole, that's interesting. You come up with that on your own?
No, I didn't. I actually got that from someone else, but I think it's like his nickname. I didn't make that one up.
I mean, he's pretty sweet. He's the guy that at Michigan hit that buzzer beater against Houston in
that's
the NCAA tournament a couple years ago. 26 points is pretty cool. That's definitely a career high for him. But no one's gonna talk about the fact they lost by 22 points. That's okay. But good for him, man. Hopefully he gets some more rotation minutes there. I mean, they need the guard help, so they'll take literally anything they can get.
Yeah, at this point, especially shooting help, because we'll get into it a little bit later. But Warriors definitely, in my opinion, have some trouble on their hands. But Matt, who else made the list for you here?
Well, I've got another most obvious one. It's Steph Curry. I had just so much fun watching this guy over the weekend. He was probably the highlight of the weekend for me. Won the 3-point contest in pretty cool fashion. He didn't necessarily dominate the competition like we expected, but him winning on the last shot was pretty electric. Then in the All-Star game, he was awesome, knocking down 3 after 3, hitting a half-court shot after Lillard to end the second quarter. Pretty much anything you could do, I could do better. I think Reggie Miller said that on the broadcast. He was my pick for MVP if Giannis didn't win it. But obviously Giannis was perfect from the field, so he deserved that. But Steph Curry was electric as well.
I think everyone knew that once Curry got to that last rack in the final round, he was winning. I don't think anyone thought he was going to lose.
Mm-hmm.
He basically just, did it just to make it dramatic, I guess. And that 31 points in the first round, Jesus Christ, that's a whole lot of shots made. He was in his bag for sure. Next on my list is a pretty obvious one. Terrence Davis of the Toronto Raptors. Scored a season-high 14 points and got on 14 shots against the Boston Celtics. This is someone who I thought was going to break out for them this year and take that next step forward. Really hasn't, though, but perhaps this could be a jumping-off point for the undrafted player out of Ole Miss.
Yeah, man, you're really going in your bag here because did the Raptors win that game?
They did not.
Yeah, so okay, cool for him, but like they didn't win the game. Whatever. I'm not gonna be a stickler, but yeah, hopefully he gets some more minutes. He said he was undrafted from Ole Miss. Probably fighting for rotation minutes down there in Toronto. Seems like a good player though. Don't honestly know much about him, but obviously you dug in your bag, making me look like a fool again. So
that's what happens last week when I couldn't say Zlatan's name.
Yeah.
Ibrahimovic. Yeah, that's right. I can say it right now. Anyways, though, Matt, who rounds out the list for you here?
This is the most obvious player on the list. It's Adam Silver. He got exactly what he wanted. The All-Star Game and its events happened successfully. He got his precious TV money, and no one got affected by COVID except for the one team he hates the most, the Philadelphia 76ers. Of course, the Sixers were the only team affected by this stupid All-Star Game that didn't even need to happen. There's just no way to prevent this, says the only league to hold an All-Star Game in a global pandemic. What a joke. Yes, I'm mad, Hunter.
I'm not even gonna comment on that. I'm just gonna leave it at that. So next on my list is Cameron Payne, another obvious name for the Phoenix Suns. Had 17 points, 10 assists, and 5 rebounds in the win against the Golden State Warriors. In his 2 games with the most minutes this season, he's actually played his best basketball. So he's a guy who, when maybe other guys aren't playing as well, or maybe there's injuries, he does step up, knows his role, and loves to get his shots up.
Yeah, I think most people would most remember him from doing his dances with Russell Westbrook when they were on the Thunder together pregame. But he actually went off the bubble last year. This is the first guy I know who you're actually talking about. So he went off in the bubble last year when the Suns went their 8-0 run a little bit. He played some great defense for them in the bubble, logged some good minutes too. So hopefully that transitions into this year. Obviously his minutes probably aren't the same as they were in the bubble, but good for him.
Yeah, like I said, I like digging deep in my bag here, but that's going to wrap up our players of the week. Like we said, we're going to talk about some Golden State Warriors and where they go from here. So currently, they are 19-18 in the Western Conference. That is 9th. So they would be one of the play-in teams, if you will. That's how the NBA is structured this year. They got 10 teams, 7 through 10, basically play in to the next round of the playoffs. Steph Curry has been phenomenal, having statistically one of the best years of his career. The only reason the Warriors haven't completely sunk the boat yet is because of Steph Curry. Actually, just recently, right before the podcast, Bob Myers, their president, said that they're going to be aggressive at the deadline, which they normally aren't. They normally don't try getting guys midseason, but they said they're going to be aggressive. And I think he's got some tricks up his sleeve. So, Matt, do you think that the Warriors are going to pull some sort of magic off at the deadline?
I think they need to, and I think Bob Myers realizes that as well. He knows that this team can't get anywhere if they don't make a move, and if they are just holding on to Steph Curry for dear life and holding on to his coattails and saying, take us to the promised land, because it's not going to happen. As you said, the 9th seed in the West, it's not going to get done. That's not what they want from this team. They're paying way too much money, some of these players, to settle for 9th in the West, and Steph Curry deserves better than that. Hopefully they swing a deal. Victor Oladipo is the main name that I think we're both hearing right now. I think that'd be a great fit for them, actually, especially since Klay Thompson is not there this year and he's on an expiring contract. You have no commitment to him next year. I think that's a no-brainer of a trade. I think the Warriors need to go make that trade.
Yeah, the Warriors need to get some sort of playmaker like a Victor Oladipo to take the pressure off of Steph Curry, because
he plays great defense.
Does play very good defense as well, because this team is in the 0 percentile in points for every 100 possessions when Steph Curry is not on the court. So basically, this team just can't do anything when Steph Curry is not on the court. And of course, this is not a guy who can play 48 minutes every single game, because no one actually does that in the NBA nowadays. But the rumors are the Warriors, they will not move James Wiseman. They just took 2nd overall. They're also not going to try to move their 2021 first rounder, which is owned by the Minnesota Timberwolves, is top 3 protected. So if the Timberwolves do not finish top 3 in the lottery, that pick goes right to the Golden State Warriors. Andrew Wiggins still screwing over that team, I guess. But anyways, though, they only will trade those guys unless they get a generational talent. And I don't think a guy like Beal Levine is going to be available at the deadline. So I don't think any big crazy moves like that are going to happen. But I guess you never know. So, Matt, I just kind of want to wonder here. I didn't think the Warriors were going to be very good this year. Not sure as much of what your thoughts are on it, but how do you feel that they've been this year? Have they shocked you? Or is this kind of where you thought they'd be?
Well, you got to look at the rest of the team here, Hunter, and especially as soon as Klay Thompson tore his ACL or his Achilles this year. Yeah, I mean, you knew that this roster wasn't going to be good. It's going to be the same team as last year, which was one of the worst in the league, plus Steph Curry. So Steph Curry automatically makes them 14 wins better already. So he's got them at hovering around 500, which is fine for any other organization, but not for the Warriors and not for a team that has won 3 championships in this decade, especially for Steph Curry. They built this team to win a championship, and they're just not performing. You can say, that Steph Curry, he's out there pretty much by himself. He's not getting a lot of help out there, especially scoring wise. But at the end of the day, the Warriors are meant to build a championship team. They were meant to compete for a championship. The amount of money they're paying out is meant to win a championship, and they are hovering on 500 in the West. That's not going to get done.
Yeah, I can't say I'm surprised. I think their dynasty, unless they make a massive trade, is over. This was a team waiting to get Giannis, but he signed long-term with the Bucks. Does not look like he's going to be going anywhere anytime soon. But I do want to say, because talking about that Andrew Wiggins trade, they traded D'Angelo Russell in that trade. And now it looks like they really need an offensive guy who can really initiate the offense, create for others, and get his own shot as well. Sounds like D'Angelo Russell was kind of that guy. It didn't really work. And due to Steph Curry being hurt, we never really saw both him and D'Lo together. I just kind of want to know, Matt, do you think that trade was worth it for the Warriors? Do you think they regret it?
Well, I mean, hindsight is always 20/20, Hunter, and they didn't know that Klay Thompson would be out for the year again this season too. Obviously, Russell doesn't really fit well in a backcourt with Steph and Klay, and the Warriors knew that. But Wiggins is pretty butt cheeks too, so what do I know?
Yeah, I personally, fit-wise, I think we actually covered that here, and I said that it was kind of like the Harrison Barnes kind of role, digging big back when he was kind of running the 3 there for Golden State when they won that first championship. I was like, oh, maybe that's kind of what they want Andrew Wiggins to be. But like you said, I think I would rather just go with the talent. I'll just keep D'Angelo Russell and find another wing somewhere else. I don't think it's that hard. Andrew Wiggins is not that good of a basketball player, and I'm not afraid to say it. Kelly Oubre, too, interesting with him. He's on an expiring deal. Awful start to the year, but he's now playing a lot better at least comparable. Do you think this is a guy that the Warriors are going to look to re-sign again, or do you think he could be someone involved in one of these trades?
I think he's more likely to be involved in one of these trades than to be re-signed by the Warriors. I think he's definitely the main guy, the main role player that would be shipped off in the deal, especially, if they do get another wing. There's no sense to have Oubre there as well, especially since he has not been good consistently through this year. And the Warriors, they just need consistent scoring. They need consistency on both ends of the court. Honestly, he's not a good defender either. But I think he's far more likely to be included in a trade than be re-signed.
Yeah, I when they made that trade, I thought it was just a desperate move because Klay Thompson got hurt.
Absolutely.
They were looking for him even before Klay Thompson, but it just, the fit's not there. He doesn't shoot the ball, and this team needs guys who can shoot the ball. And I just never liked the fit at all. It's not really disrespect to Kelly Oubre. I mean, he is what he is. But yeah, I didn't like this move from the jump.
Yeah, to be the second scorer on that team and to be as consistent as he is, it's a lot to ask for him, especially since you knew what you were getting from him.
Yeah, I think something even more shocking for me was looking at Draymond Green's numbers before this started, this podcast. This man's averaging 5.7 points per game. Like, I had to look that up on, multiple sites because I was like, that's not true. There's no way that's true. It is true. Give him credit. He's averaging over 8 assists per game, and I believe led the month of February in assists. So he is affecting the game in other ways. But, Matt, he is still set to make around $100 million. You heard that right. And his contract expires in 2024, where he's going to be 34 years old. In a couple days, Steph Curry's going to be 33 years old, and Klay Thompson just turned 31 years old, Matt. In my opinion, I think this dynasty is all but over. Or it's going to be over. I do not think this team's going to win another championship again. I remember we went on a little bit of a tangent, that one segment on Ball Don't Lie, about how Steph Curry could get traded. And everyone went after me on Instagram and social media like, that's crazy. And I'm like, I'm just saying, if he wants to be super loyal and stuff and stay in the Bay Area and retire Warrior, I respect that. Not a lot of guys can do that or have done that over the years. But if Steph Curry, who's in his prime, still absolutely dominating the game, still, in my opinion, the best point guard in basketball, I would want to go somewhere where my talents won't be wasted and I can win a championship, because Steph Curry wants to be in that elite status and be one of the greatest players of all time.
Yeah, I mean, we looked it up by the time we brought it up. His contract is over, I think, not after this year, but the next year. So it's coming up kind of soon. If he's in a contract year next year, he could kind of force his way out of there, especially if he doesn't see a light at the end of the tunnel there. Maybe he'll want to give another chance with Klay Thompson, see how they fit again. But I don't know if Klay Thompson's going to be the same player, especially not defensively, that he was. Yeah, I mean, Draymond Green thing, I'll touch on this. When you pay him $100 million, you are not expecting him to average more assists than points per game. Obviously, like he adds a lot on the defensive end of the floor. He adds a lot, to their camaraderie and stuff. His presence is fantastic on the floor for them. But that's what you pay coaches for. Like, you're not going to pay coaches $100 million. This guy is just not worth that money. That Tobias Harris contract starting to look a little bit better, Hunter. But I will say the shooting 23.7% from three. Did you know he's the only player in NBA history to look like he shoots the backpack on?
You don't think anyone else does? You think it's only him?
Yeah, dude, he looks ridiculous when he shoots a three. Like, he looks like, it looks challenging for him. But in terms of the Warriors dynasty, I thought, honestly, to win a championship, it was over the second that Kevin Durant tore his Achilles in the 2019 NBA Finals. Everyone knew he wasn't going back to Golden State after that year. And without him, this team, quite honestly, is average, especially with all that talent out in the West, and especially without Klay Thompson. This team was strictly average and maybe even below average without Klay Thompson.
Yeah, look, I was saying this before even the season started. I'm like, this is the worst bench unit that the Warriors have had in years. Like, their bench was always awesome. They always had so many guys who maybe weren't even scorers, but they could just rely on them to play big minutes in crunch time. Like Andre Iguodala and Sean Livingston, Kevon Looney. I mean, they still do have Looney. But like, they had those guys that they knew they can rely on when, things go south. They don't have that anymore. It's a bunch of young, unproven guys. The only guy who really comes off their bench that does much of anything is Eric Pascal. Even James Wiseman actually lost his starting job to Kevon Looney because he's been struggling this year too. So this team is like, they are literally, if it was not for Steph Curry having like his historic career season, they would be like the worst team in basketball. And we saw that last year. So to think that everything's just going to be all, flowers and daisies when freaking Klay Thompson gets back after two extremely serious injuries, unfortunately, that's just not how it works. I hope he is very good, and Klay Thompson can come back to his form. But even then, I don't think this is a championship contending team unless they make a drastic move, which doesn't look like it's going to happen anytime soon. I think that this is going to be a team that's rebuilding.
Yeah, I think that's a good point to bring up, Hunter, about the bench unit, is because even if they do make a trade for a star player, their bench unit is still going to be bad because they're probably going to give up a bench guy in that trade to get a star player like they're trying to do. It's going to deteriorate their bench even more. And that's putting a duct tape over a big old hole. It's not going to stop. It's going to stop something, but it's not going to stop everything. So it's a solution to the problem, but it's not it's not a long-term solution. Like you said, I think that this team is going to end up rebuilding very soon, very much more quickly than people expected.
Yeah, duct tape is not a substitute to flex tape, Matt. No, it is not. Anyways, though, but yeah, looking at the Warriors, like their defense is not nearly as good as it was during those dynasty runs. Their shooting is awful. They are not a good 3-point shooting team at all outside of Steph Curry. Their offense, like we said, when Steph Curry's off the floor, they're terrible. They're like the worst team in basketball. Mm-hmm. This team's not good. I've been saying it since the start of the year. I said Steph Curry would have to be like an MVP candidate for them to make the playoffs, and that's what's happened. Everything else has just fallen apart. So I'm not shocked at all. Like I not to be that guy, but like I saw this happening. Like it's the writing's on the wall. But unfortunately, people were blind and didn't want to read it.
Yeah, everybody just kind of assumed, Steph Curry's on the team, they're going to be fine. But you got to, again, look at the rest of the roster and the fact that they finished with, I think, either the worst record or the second worst record in the entire league last year. And that roster pretty much overhauled and came back, and they just added Steph Curry. So he's not going to fix all their problems.
No, and I like I said, I wouldn't be shocked if he gets traded. I'm just saying. I think it won't happen this year. I don't even think it'll happen next year. The year after, I don't know. He could leave. I'm just saying it's up to him. maybe he wants to stay and ride it out with the Warriors and be a good soldier. I respect it. Maybe do like what Dirk does. But the difference is Steph Curry is in the prime of his career right now. And I'm sure he's hungry to win another championship and be, I'm sure the celebratory victories of making the playoffs is not going to be enough for a guy who is a 2-time MVP and 3-time NBA Finals champion.
Yeah, if I were him, I would want to keep boosting that legacy and maybe go to a different team and definitely have a better shot at competing for a championship.
Yeah. And like we talked about, the Warriors are kind of on the fence about, are they going to rebuild? Sounds like they're not going to rebuild. They're going to go for it, which I respect. See what you can do for there, Bob Myers. But this 2021 NBA draft, this is considered one of the best drafts in a really long time. It's like the Warriors do not want to give up that first-round pick they own from the Timberwolves. But I kind of want to know because, we're hitting the NBA trade deadline March 27th. Do you think this is going to affect anything at all? Do you think teams are going to be a lot less wary of trading any of their picks?
I think it's certainly a possibility that that's a factor. With that being said, a championship contending team could use that to their advantage when trying to make a deal for a player at the deadline. Like earlier, you brought up the Warriors having that top 3 protected pick from the Wolves, which could certainly hold, value to them. Obviously, they would want to hold on to that. But you could also use that as a really important, enticing trade piece to fill out that roster that you are complaining is not good enough. I think that would hold some serious water in trade negotiations with a pick like that and how deep this draft class is. I think that's something to think about too.
It is. That's definitely a good angle to look at. I just think teams are not looking to trade. Like, it sounds like a lot of these teams are kind of like, and maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it sounds like nothing's going to be traded. And March 27th is going to roll around. We're going to have like 20 trades. It could happen. Who knows? But I don't think a lot of star players are going to get traded. And I would only give up those first-round picks if I'm getting a star player. That's my personal opinions. Draft picks are always the most valuable asset to any team unless you have like a super great player. Those draft picks are always super valuable. It's why everyone hypes up the Thunder and the Rockets and teams like that. And the Clippers when they were acquiring all those picks. But speaking of the fire sale going on in Houston, people said, quote, they're going to burn the house down. That is what an executive said about the Houston Rockets. PJ Tucker is apparently as good as gone, according to many people around the league. I just want to take a quick second here that the Houston Rockets offered either Duncan Robinson or Tyler Hero straight up for PJ Tucker, even though they wouldn't give up those guys for James Harden. I'm speechless.
Awful trade. Why would Miami even ever pick up the phone for that conversation? That is just one of the laziest trade negotiations I've ever heard in my life.
This is like freaking you're simulating trades like in like my free agency in 2K, like my GM. I was like what? Why would you offer that? Like, I saw that. I was like, there's no way that's true.
Yeah, at least sweeten the deal a little bit. Throw a pick in
down for James Harden. Why would they sell him for PJ Tucker?
Yeah, they're not that desperate.
Yeah,
especially at the center position, they have Bam Adebayo. Pretty chilling there.
Yeah, I was like, oh my god. But anyways, though, PJ Tucker actually has not had a very good year. His 3-point percentage since James Harden's been gone is 23%. Oh my god! Like, did James Harden really do that much for you? But anyways, though, what are your opinions? I think PJ Tucker's probably gonna get traded for something. Even if the Rockets get ripped off, something is better than nothing for Houston at this point. Who's some teams you think that could potentially want him?
Well, I think Brooklyn's going to be the team that he goes to, whether it's in buyout or trade fashion. I think the Nets are probably desperate for him. He plays power forward where they're very thin. They just signed Blake Griffin there. But obviously, PJ Tucker is another bench piece. He can shoot the three pretty well, especially when he played with Harden. He was playing well to start the year when Harden was still there. So, I mean, I think Brooklyn is the main team that could consider him. I also could see the Sixers going after him. That's not even like bias or anything, but they definitely could use a backup power forward there that can shoot the three and can play good defense. He can guard pretty much anybody and play pretty well. We saw it last year when he was their starting five and played pretty well for being as mismatched as he was. So I think those are the two teams to keep an eye on. I think the Nets and the Sixers.
That's actually who I was thinking of too. For Brooklyn, he has ties with both those teams, starting with the Nets. Mike D'Antoni, of course, an assistant coach there, and then obviously his boy James Harden. Apparently, they're still pretty close. So he fits. He makes sense. He's a great culture guy, a greedy guy. He's someone who the Nets don't really have, which is someone who's not afraid to guard the best player, not afraid to get fouls, not afraid to rebound, box out, and do all those things. Hit corner threes, plays great off the ball, doesn't need the ball to be effective. Perfect guy for the Brooklyn Nets. And then for the Sixers, Daryl Morey, kind of was the one who really unlocked PJ Tucker and found out what his potential really can be and gave him that opportunity. So he knows how valuable those guys are to building championship caliber teams. The Sixers could definitely use that. I think he fits like their defensive mentality that they have in Philadelphia. Some other teams, if they can somehow pull it off, Utah's interesting. The Clippers would be interesting. Really, any of these top contending teams. But then what will probably happen is he'll get traded like the Pistons or something. Be like, what the heck's going on?
Yeah, because the Pistons need more power forwards. That's what they need.
Yeah, they're like, that's our guy.
Breaking news. LaMarcus Aldridge and the Spurs are parting ways. We were just about to talk about him too.
We were just about to talk about the San Antonio Spurs. So let's get right to it, Matt. So it's looking like, all right, so he's going to be playing elsewhere. Curious to see potentially if there's any landing spots for him. Matt, we talked about the idea of the Spurs, I think, trading him earlier. I feel like we talked about this like last year if they would trade him or not. But what do you think about this news, Matt? Do you think he's got stuff left in the tank?
Honestly, this is not a very attractive free agent right now. I don't think many teams are going to be that interested. Obviously, he'll get a vet minimum deal somewhere, but I don't know if it's going to be for any team contending unless they get really, really desperate. If Elton Brand was still running the team over in Philly, I would say the Sixers would have a pretty good shot at signing him. I don't know how many teams are going to be interested in him. Maybe the Celtics because they're desperate, but I don't know.
Yeah, that's interesting. I'm trying to see if there's any teams that are potentially looking for his services. I'm not really seeing much popping up anywhere else right now, looking at Twitter. But yeah, it's interesting. I saw the Lakers could be an option perhaps because the Lakers are trying to get Andre Drummond potentially from the Detroit Pistons if they buy him out. So maybe if they swing and miss there, LaMarcus Aldridge. I don't love that fit as much, but I think someone will definitely sign him. Maybe honestly, it's like the Knicks are kind of going for it to try and make the playoffs.
Oh man, that would be such a Knicks signing. To sign a star player that's way past his prime. Oh my God, dude, James Dolan would probably give him $15 million. Oh my God, wow! I'm glad you brought that up. I'm gonna sit on that for a little bit.
Another team looking for LaMarcus Aldridge is actually the Miami Heat. They might be looking for
They're pretty desperate for a power forward as well.
Yeah, that one actually makes a little bit more sense. Outside of Bam Adebayo, they don't really have a whole lot of bigs there. Well, they definitely don't have Myers Leonard now. Kelly Olynyk's been pretty solid for them too. But LaMarcus Aldridge, I actually kind of like that for the Miami Heat. I think that'd be a pretty solid acquisition for them. I don't know what you think, but off the top, I think that's not a bad,
I think
roll the dice.
Like Blake Griffin, I think it's a low risk, high reward move, especially for a team that's really needy for a power forward. I think Miami makes sense.
Yeah. Also hearing maybe the Phoenix Suns, perhaps, maybe to get a backup behind DeAndre Ayton. Ayton, is a low post scorer like that. LaMarcus Aldridge maybe can give him a spark right there. The Suns playing really well this year, currently second in the Western Conference.
He could honestly go to Portland again. He could go back to Portland.
Maybe
they could kind of use a backup power forward there.
They've had some injuries. Yusuf Nurkic is expected to come back soon. Enes Kanter's played really well for them. Zach Collins is there as well. And obviously Melo kind of plays the stretch four. But maybe the reunion's back. Those Portland Trailblazers fans that didn't burn his jersey, perhaps they can rep 12 again. But yeah, I'm seeing that too. A lot of people are saying make it happen. But yeah, LaMarcus Aldridge was on the books for $24 million for a team like the Spurs. What do you think about this move? Because they got some other guys that could potentially be trade pieces. DeMar DeRozan, perhaps, who's had a very good year for them. They got Patty Mills, Rudy Gay, some good role players there. But obviously they got some really good young players there too, like we highlighted a couple weeks ago when we really did a deep dive in San Antonio. So are the Spurs now looking like they might be sellers despite that they're in the playoff hunt?
Well, originally I had said they're not one for midseason trading, but now who knows? I mean, I don't know. I mean, they're still in the thick of the playoff race, I think. And I think they're more optimistic about their chances than anybody outside of San Antonio. So I'd be surprised if they moved on from a guy like Patty Mills, maybe Rudy Gay, but I think Patty Mills probably stayed there because he shoots a three pretty well. If anything, I think they'd – oh, yeah, I said if anything they were going to move on from Aldridge, and I guess they did that already. So I guess I had some I had looked into the future there a little bit. But, yeah, I mean, they're definitely going to hold on to DeRozan because he's their heart and soul right now. He's their top player, and I think, you know, especially since people are now interested in the Spurs again, I think they're starting to play a little bit better. I think they're going to probably try and ride that out. I don't know if they'll necessarily buy, but I don't know if they're going to sell either.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting. Yeah, I'm trying to see if getting any word about maybe where he's going to go next, but looking like now it's a lot more speculation than clarity. So we already gave some good scenarios, perhaps for LaMarcus Aldridge. Perhaps the Lakers won't give as bad of a pitch to him as they did a couple years ago because they've actually won some stuff since then. Anyways, though, let's look about Andre Drummond, the Cleveland Cavaliers. So Drummond is a guy, too, who I'm hearing might get bought out potentially. It's looking like after signing Blake Griffin, the Nets aren't going to be a spot for Drummond. But if he somehow is on the move, do you see any teams that could really use him? I know we talked about the Raptors before and stuff like that, too.
I still love the fit with the Raptors there because they're just so desperate for a big offensively and defensively they just need rebounds and interior defense. I think he's a great fit there. And the Lakers are a good fit. Obviously, they're a good fit for anybody. The Celtics, I'm definitely afraid of him going to the Celtics. What was the other team I was going to say? Oh, Charlotte would be a good fit, I think. They're desperate for a center as well. Literally anybody with the Brooklyn Nets. That's all I'm asking for.
Yeah, I don't think the Nets are going to get him at this point. Maybe I'm wrong, but who knows? But looking at, I think another team's the Dallas Mavericks. That could be interesting as well. They could definitely use some help behind Kristaps Porzingis there and Dwight Powell. They're one of the worst rebounding teams in basketball. And Andre Drummond's one of those rebounding players in basketball. It seems like it fits too well. Like snug as a glove. What can I say? Anyways, though, Larry Nance, a lot of interest in him too. They did not give him a contract extension, I don't think. Yes, they did. But he's on a pretty reasonable deal. However, it's reported that it's unlikely they trade him unless they get an offer they can't refuse. Do you buy that, Matt?
Why? That's ridiculous. Why? Like, he's Larry Nance. Like, he's not his father, first of all. Maybe they're confused on which Larry Nance it is, but that's pretty ridiculous to me. I'd trade him for something a little decent.
I'm also hearing the Milwaukee Bucks could be a spot for LaMarcus Aldridge.
I don't know if I love that fit.
Yeah.
I feel like their paint's already pretty crowded.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, they might have already painted that canvas. Anyways, though, so also something I thought was a little interesting too. Spencer Dinwiddie could be on the move. Now, he tore his ACL right in the beginning of the season, but ever since then, they got a guy named James Harden who's going to occupy that backcourt Kyrie for quite some time. But Spencer Dinwiddie's contract is expiring. He could opt in and make $12.3 million, but I think he could even make more money on the open market, so he might opt out and become a free agent. The Nets also have a $5.7 million disabled player exception after he did get hurt. So do you think this is a guy that the Nets can use as a trade piece to get somebody else?
I honestly don't think so. I mean, whatever team takes him on is obviously going to need something else in the deal because no one's going to trade for a player who has a torn ACL. I honestly don't know what they would trade with, who they would trade him with, because it would just be a team with cap space maybe and nothing to spend it on to take his contract. I don't know who would try to make that trade for a player that isn't going to play for them and probably won't re-sign in the offseason. That seems pretty weird to me.
I heard a potential team could be the Detroit Pistons. They're a team that they did just trade Derrick Rose, Killian Hayes. I think he's actually out for the year too. With the Detroit Pistons, their rookie. He actually was originally on the Pistons and then got traded to Brooklyn. I kind of like that fit, actually. I think they could use a guard. At that point, I think Spencer Dinwiddie's a pretty good player. Like you said, they can give up like some random player that they don't really need to get him. That's really the only situation, though, where he's really going to get traded, Matt, because like you said, you brought up a great point. Like, he's hurt. He's not going to play. So a team that is trying to make the playoffs is not going to trade for him. I would like the Bulls, although, again, for that reason, it'd be hard. But I think him next to Kobe White and Zach LaVine would also be interesting off the top.
Yeah, and these are all teams that you would think of in terms of free agency. Like, I don't think they would give up an asset for an injured Dinwiddie, especially when he's not a guarantee to re-sign, not a guarantee to take that player option. I just don't know why anybody would consider making that trade.
Yeah, it's a little bit difficult. Had he been playing this, I think he 100% gets traded.
Oh yeah.
The whole nother layer to it, like there always is. But look at the Hornets. Like, this is a team that has been a pleasant surprise, right in the mix of the playoff hunt right now. They definitely need a big man. Their perimeter is pretty set. They're interested in Nikola Vucevic. A lot of people have brought this up because he's having a career year, and people just kind of wonder, like, is his trade value ever going to be higher than what it currently is? And the Hornets have been linked as a team interested in getting him. Andre Drummond and your boy Al Horford are also being in the mix as well. Do you think the Hornets are going to try and make a move for a big here?
I think they should start with Vucevic for sure. They have too many guards and no big men. To me, this is a no-brainer of a deal for the Hornets if they want to accelerate the rebuild, especially since Vucevic, I think he's on an extension. Like, he's not going to be there for just the rest of the year.
Yeah.
He would be there to grow with LaMelo Ball and Devontae Graham. I think that's a good trade. They give up what they have too much of and get something in return that not only fills their needs but exceeds their needs. I think that's a no-brainer of a trade for Vucevic. Drummond might be a desperate move because obviously he's just a temporary solution. Horford, don't even get me started. That's stupid.
Yeah, I love
no one should have him.
I think that'd be a great spot for Vooch. I also just got an update about it that the Spurs are trying to work out a trade for LaMarcus Aldridge.
So they're not going to buy him out?
I don't know. They might, but they're looking to trade him first, which I guess is good.
Oh, is anybody going to take on that contract?
Yeah, $24 million. That's a lot.
No.
Not sure.
Not worth it.
I think it does expire though. So him and DeRozan are off the books, I believe, this year. So perhaps that they are able to get somehow. I don't know though. But LaMarcus Aldridge definitely a flash in the past, Matt. We're gonna do the same thing here for our All NBA team this week. Given our All-NBA college players team. This was an idea by you. I appreciate it. It's obviously going to be March Madness this next week. Always one of the most fun times of the year. We're going to give 5 of our best NBA players, but when they were in college, basically. So 5 of the best players that we watched when they were hooping on the collegiate level, Matt. I'll let you go first because, I'm a gentleman.
So I picked players that were awesome in college and completely disappeared in the NBA.
Okay.
So I'm going to start with Jimmer Fredette from BYU. This is the most obvious guy for this list. Jimmer took college basketball by storm in his senior season in 2011, jacking up Steph Curry range threes before it was cool on his way to National Player of the Year honors. Jimmer was a lottery pick to the Sacramento Kings, where careers go to die, and just never really panned out in the NBA for whatever reason. I guess his play style didn't really fit. He didn't play really good defense. After a few unsuccessful years in the NBA, he went to the Chinese Basketball Association and won MVP in his first season in 2017 by averaging 37 points per game and dropping 73 one game. I think he is still in the CBA. Correct me if I'm wrong there, but obviously a guy wanted to succeed. He just unfortunately ended up in Sacramento.
Yeah, the Shanghai Sharks. No, I knew that Jimmer Fredette was going to be a bust. He was slow, didn't have great handles. He was a very good shooter in college, but I feel like the defense was partially it. A little ahead of his time, I guess. But not that athletic. Not good on defense. Not a great facilitator. I knew he wasn't gonna be that good. But yeah, it happens. But yeah, the fact that he was on the Kings probably doesn't help either. But a guy who's on my list actually currently plays for the Sacramento Kings. I believe he had one of the most underrated college careers in the last 20 years. And that's Buddy Hield. This dude was so freaking good at Oklahoma. Averaged 17.4 points per game in his career, but averaged 25 points per game his senior year. Took Oklahoma to the Final Four, a team that had really no other NBA players on it at all. He hit over 45% of his threes his senior year, and it hit over 100. I think it's 147 threes he hit his senior year. That's a lot of freaking threes, Matt. He was not missing at all. It was too easy for him. Unanimous All-American, one National Player of the Year, all of that nature. A soft spot because I picked him to win Player of the Year entering that year, but 3-time All Big 12, one of the greatest players in Oklahoma history. Buddy Hield was definitely one of my favorite players to watch, and I didn't put any Duke players or Laker players on my list because I wanted to remain partial as a journalist.
Yes. I also didn't put any Sixers players on here, so both partial. But yeah, Buddy Hield, he was a sensation, man. I remember when his senior year, man, he went off that year. They people were calling him the next Steph Curry. Obviously he's not Steph Curry level, but he was pretty awesome. He definitely deserved Player of the Year. He even had a game-winning half-court three in the Big 12 championship that got called off because it was after the buzzer. But that was a sick play. He climbed in the stands. It was pretty cool. That was my main memory from that season. Also, the fact that he got blown out by Nova in the Final Four. But that's whatever. It's an accomplishment for him getting there. Great player. I'd love that you brought him up.
Yeah, Buddy Hield was definitely one of my favorite players I was watching back then. So, Matt, who else is on the list here for you? Oh, boy.
Hunter, you're going to love this one. Perry Ellis, Kansas. This man was at Kansas for no less than 11 years, and you cannot convince me otherwise. He played 144 games at Kansas and started 109 of them with the Jayhawks. He was awarded to all Big 12 honors 3 times and averaged at least 13.5 points per game in his final 3 seasons at Kansas in each of those years. He went undrafted in the NBA, probably because everyone thought he was at least 33 years old. He played with the Mavericks in Summer League and was cut before training camp. He then signed with the Hornets as an undrafted rookie in September of 2016 and was promptly released in October of 2016. He never played in the NBA. Like every other decent college player who wasn't good enough for the NBA, he played overseas for a few years and is currently playing in Japan. But he was, as soon as I thought of this list, he was the first guy I thought of because, I mean, he was just a sensation, man. Like, he was there for 11 years. He was there for so long. I feel like every time I watch Kansas, he was there.
Yeah, I feel like he might be the first player to be a grandfather while playing college basketball, I swear. Yeah, Perry Ellis. I was like, there's guys that now, especially in the one and done era, you're like, did this guy like ever graduate? Did he leave? Like, how old is he? Perry Ellis was literally that guy before even the one and done era was taking off. Yeah, Perry Ellis. I am glad you brought him up because I actually went with a little more star players here. You went with a little more the low key ones, I guess.
Yeah.
So I actually have 2 Oklahoma Sooners on my list.
Okay.
Griffin, also an absolute freaking monster at OU. He actually came back. He was going to be a lottery pick probably after his freshman year, but came back because he wanted to make win a championship. His older brother was also on the team as well and had one of the low-key best single seasons in college basketball history. Averaged 22.7, 14.4 points and rebounds per game. He won National Player of the Year, first team All-American, lost to the eventual champion UNC Tar Heels in the Elite 8 in 2009. Blake Griffin was, and we talk about like favorite players to watch. This guy, when he was younger, was a human highlight reel. We saw him posterize everyone, and he started doing that back in Norman, Oklahoma. Blake Griffin was an absolute problem there. And I feel like his college games should not have gone unnoticed. I believe his might be retired too.
Really? Oh, good for him. I think everybody kind of remembers him for his first thing being dunking on Kendrick Perkins, but people don't realize he was doing that in college all of the time, and especially playing with his brother. I thought that was pretty cool. I thought it was pretty cool that he wanted to stay there and play with him. He was obviously a great player at Oklahoma. He was a fun fact. He was on the cover of the last NCAA basketball game they ever made.
Yeah.
I have that game. I still play it pretty routinely, which is kind of sad on my PS3. But he was pretty sick in Oklahoma. He was the number 1 pick for a reason. Awesome guy to watch.
Yeah, Blake Griffin was definitely someone who I was like, I need a big man on this list. I'm like, Blake Griffin kind of works. Yeah, so 2 Oklahoma Sooners. Who would have thought? But Matt, who else is on the list for you here?
Adam Morrison, Gonzaga. Morrison was a great player with an iconic look, a mop for hair, and a rockin' stash. He was the Division I scoring champ in 2006 and led the Bulldogs to 3 straight March Madness appearances before Gonzaga was a tournament regular like they are now. They obviously weren't like that back then. They were a mid-major school that got hot at the right time. He even got them to a Sweet 16 appearance where that famous clip of UCLA stealing the ball off a trap in the backcourt turned into a layup to give the Bruins the lead. Then Morrison dribbling all the way down the court and chucking up a desperation shot that didn't go in was followed by him crying in the middle of the floor. He went on to be one of the biggest draft busts in recent memory, as he was the 3rd overall pick to Charlotte in an extremely weak 2006 lottery class. LaMarcus Aldridge was in that one, though, who we brought up earlier. This was one of the few years in NBA history where the back half of the draft produced way better players in the lottery. They had Kyle Lowry, Rajon Rondo, Paul Millsap, PJ Tucker. Anyway, Morrison played in just 4 pro seasons, but he was on the final 2 his final 2 years were with the Lakers that won back-to-back championships with Kobe Bryant and Pau Gasol. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, they did. I was about to bring that up. I'm like, yeah, well, they won 2 championships, so
Yeah.
there's that. Adam Morrison was pretty very bad, but was a very, very accomplished player at Gonzaga. Kind of was like their first like star player that they really had.
Absolutely.
Outside of like John Stockton, but that's not a hero there. Next up on my list, though, I'm gonna take you back a little bit. Also, John Wall. He was so freaking good at Kentucky. Really kind of ignited like the one and done era a bit. UK, they were the number 1 overall seed. I believe they only lost like 2 or 3 games before losing in the Elite 8 to West Virginia. And none other than Duke won the national championship that year. That was a great squad, I'm not going to lie. But yeah, he was first-team All-American as a freshman, SEC Player of the Year as a freshman, won the Rupp Trophy, which is a National Player of the Year where they give at Rupp Arena. That is where the Wildcats play. Averaged 16.6. 6.5 and 4.3. That's points, assists, and rebounds per game. His numbers weren't insane, but his impact was insanely good. They were a stacked team. They had all freshmen starting 5. I believe 5 or 6 players got drafted in the first round of that 2010 draft, which is pretty insane when you think about it. And all of them so either very good or respectable players in the NBA. So shout out to John Wall. He did the John Wall dance like I've done on this Ball Don't Lie podcast once. He was an absolute stud at Kentucky. He was one of my favorite players to watch.
Yeah, him and DeMarcus Cousins were a fun duo, man. And that was before their Rockets days where they were pretty not comparable. But he was a fun player to watch, man. He was so fast. I remember him so specifically, whenever he would get in a breakaway, he would just run right by everybody, go take a layup or a spinning dunk or something like that. He was electric to watch. Obviously, I remember him coming out in that draft. It was, like you said, there was the beginning of the one and done era. And I remember specifically that being like so controversial back then. Like now you wouldn't even think about it, but back then it was so controversial. And he was pretty much one of the first ones to do it, and it ended up working out great for him. Got the bag, obviously. He went 1 overall to the Wizards. I think, man, John Wall, he was so much fun to watch in college, man.
Even in the NBA, I mean, he was probably one of the most physically gifted guards I've ever seen play basketball. His feel for the game, his passing, and how athletic and big. Like he was like, I looked at his bio when I was looking this stuff up. First off, Kentucky, update your stuff. They had literally nothing on there other than his gain height. He was listed at 6'4", 195. I'm like, that is pretty freaking big for a guard, and he's super athletic. So yeah, shout out to John Wall. I had to bring him up. But Matt, who makes it up next for you?
So you're talking so much about Duke. I had to bring up a UNC guy, and you're probably going to hate him. Tyler Hansbrough.
Yep.
First and foremost, this guy had the most intimidating nickname ever, Psycho T. His play backed that up as he was a tenacious rebounder, both offensively and defensively, and was way too athletic for other collegiate big men. I'm sure he was one of the first guys you loved to hate. He won Player of the Year in 2008 and won the national championship with Tar Heels in 2009. Unlike every other player on this list of mine, Hansbrough actually carved out a somewhat decent NBA career, playing for 7 years with 3 teams. He never averaged more than 11 points per game in a season, but at the very least, he got some money in his pockets.
Hey, but Tyler Hansbrough never wanted that smoke. She didn't want it. Oh my
God, here we go.
Didn't want it with Gerald Henderson. Didn't want it with Chris Anderson. Just saying. Always ran away. Proving that point. Little entitled Tyler Hansbrough. Anyways, though, next on my list, someone that I think we'll both agree with, Kemba Walker for UConn.
Yeah.
And one of the greatest runs, them and that UConn Huskies team that I've ever seen. Cardiac Kemba, boogie down Kemba. When he was hitting like that, that game-winning shot against Pitt in the Big East tournament, and some of the runs he also had, it was insane. But looking at his stats in that March Madness tournament, 23.5 points per game, 5.6 assists, and 6 rebounds. And that was also pretty on par with his regular season stats as well. He set the single season record his junior year in scoring with 965 points. And that's at UConn. they got some really freaking good basketball players that came out of UConn over the last 20, 30 years. And Kemba Walker, was one of the superstars of that team. I feel like you always, when you're out partying at Penn State, you see an occasional UConn Kemba Walker jersey every once in a while. So, everyone has their respect for him. He's like, the handles, the step back threes. It did translate into the NBA. Perhaps the Kings should have taken him instead of Jimmer Fredette. Maybe he'd be in a better spot.
Yeah, God, who knows? Don't put that curse on Kemba. But man, that pick game, I know exactly where I was for that. It was like one of those shots where you knew exactly where you were. I was in my 6th grade classroom. We were watching it when we weren't supposed to, but my teacher threw it up on the projector. We watched the end of that game. It was incredible. Yeah, it was incredible. And I always say this, that 11-game stretch that Kemba and that UConn team went on, they could have played anybody. They would have won all 11 of those games. They wanted to smoke with everybody. They were so good for that stretch. Kemba Walker was undeniably the best player I've ever seen in that 11-game stretch. Yeah,
I don't think anyone could have checked Kemba there. Even like Prime Jordan. I don't know, man. Kemba was built different during that run. Ice in his veins to a T. But yeah, man, I guess just to bring it up, I always loved when I was in like middle school, high school, just like watching the game on a phone or a computer. And the teachers, they knew that we were watching. Just didn't say anything. It didn't really typically make them happy, but they're like, what am I going to do?
Yeah, especially come tournament time, man, there's nothing they can do to stop that.
No, you're lucky I'm here.
Yeah, they knew what I was doing. But the final player on my list, this is a homegrown guy for me, Scotty Reynolds from Villanova. This guy was essentially the first college basketball player I remember ever watching. He was the Nova point guard from 2006 to 2010, and he was a part of that 2009 Final Four team. That 2009 Final Four has been brought up a lot today, but which was true. That was the first year I ever remember watching a tournament or even, being interested in college basketball for that matter. Reynolds was like the face of that as he hit that crazy driving layup in the Elite Eight to beat Pitt and send Nova to their first Final Four since 1985, I believe, at the time. And he has played in like 8 countries overseas and never got a real shot in the NBA, despite being a first-team All-American that year. But yeah, he was really the reason I fell in love with college basketball back then. He was sick.
Yeah, you really went deep in your bag there. Is he like, would you say it's your favorite like college player all time, or?
Probably not of all time, but he was definitely the first one I like really distinctly remember watching, and the first one I ever liked because he was like a Nova guy, and I loved Villanova then. And
I'm just curious, do you have like a favorite college player all time or not?
Oh man, I think Kemba's up there definitely. Kemba? Honestly, I think Kemba's up there because he was sick. I also liked Shabazz Napier for UConn that couple years later. I also love Gordon Hayward when he was with Butler, but yeah.
Yeah, my favorite all time. It's gonna sound shocking. Quinn Cook is like my all-time favorite college.
Wow, really?
Yeah, bro.
Is he a Dookie?
Yeah, he was.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah.
Obviously, it wouldn't like if he played like I wouldn't care. Quinn Cook is my favorite because like senior all 4 years. He was a part of 2 teams that got bounced out of the first round. And then senior year they won the national championship. And like I think I have not witnessed a Duke player play with more heart than Quinn Cook was, and the leadership he had with that all freshman team. So Quinn Cook I always had a soft spot for him. I guess still do. I was happy to see him win a championship with the Lakers. Last but not least on my list, and this guy actually played very recently in college, Ja Morant. He took college by storm. I remember there were rumors about him coming up in his sophomore year that he was a very good player. But I remember the game against Alabama. It was Murray State's first like primetime game of that year. First time Ja Morant's on primetime television. Was not recruited at all coming out of high school. Really, he's like a 2-star player. And Ja Morant took over. I don't know if you remember this, but he had this one. He jumped over an Alabama player trying to had the dunk, and the place went freaking crazy. And they ended up winning that game. Ja Morant from there became an absolute superstar in the making, averaged 24 points per game, 24 and a half, 10 assists, which led the country, and his 331 total assists is 6th most time in a single season in NCAA history. Also averaged 5 rebounds as well. They took down Marquette in the first round. That team was absolutely – they were so bad, Matt. They had like a center who was like 6'5", 350 pounds starting. That was their starting center, basically. So Ja Morant didn't have a whole lot of help there, but he single-handedly took that team to the tournament. Put Murray State on the map. and was one of the most exciting players to watch. Now, Zion Williamson was probably the main attraction that year, but Ja Morant was a really close second, and it translated too because now he's like an up-and-coming star in the NBA. So Ja Morant, talk about a guy who really came out of nowhere and just became an absolute monster.
Yeah, I mean, he was incredible in college. I distinctly remember that first-round matchup with Marquette too because it was billed as like this blockbuster matchup between him and Marcus Howard, who was like the top scorer in the NCAA at that time. And Ja Morant completely outplayed him. He had a huge dunk in that game, a great backdoor cut that had wide open lane till he got to the rim, and he met a guy at the rim, dunked all over him. I was a fantastic play. I remember jumping out of my seat watching that one. Oh man, great memories. Well, oh man, that was an awesome tournament. Yeah. Anyway, Ja Morant, he was so good. I like you said that. I distinctly remember that center you're talking about too. It was 6'5" and was like 300 pounds. He was pretty good though, man. For as big as he was, and
like, good buckets out there.
Yeah, he was pretty good, man. So they definitely made the tournament because of Ja Morant, though. Don't mistake it.
Yeah, and I'm glad that they made too, because like had they lost in the MVC, they probably don't make the tournament.
They wouldn't have made it. Yeah.
So, yeah, also had triple-double in that game against Marquette and obviously beat them. I think they were the 12 seed. Marquette was the 5.
Yep.
I picked Murray State to win that one.
Oh, no doubt.
I think everyone. Yeah. I think like more people actually picked Murray State to win that one than Marquette.
Yeah. Well, 12-5 upsets are like the most common upset in college basketball in the March Madness tournament. So that's not that surprising, but Murray State was a great 12 seed, especially with Ja Morant. Marquette was an underwhelming team that year outside of Marcus Howard.
I think there was a stretch of time where like there was only 1-5-12 in like a 4-year period that like they pulled off the upset. So it was like, oh wow, like this is supposed to. I guess because now people know about it. So now it's you gotta pick the 4-13. You gotta be hip.
Yeah.
That's how
it's gotta get some UNC Greensboro in your life. That's what you gotta do.
Yeah, basically. They did punch their ticket, right? I think
they did. I think they're a lock for a 13 seed.
Yep, there it is. And they could be dangerous. They're not a bad team at all. The March Madness is definitely going to be really exciting, and I'm sure that it's been a 2-year stretch since we haven't had it. It's going to be great, all in Indianapolis. I'm curious to see how that's going to turn out, and I think there's going to be a lot of upsets. I feel like college basketball has been very wide open this year. There's a couple really good teams, but I think that's what it'll come down to. But I think we're going to see some wacky upsets this year.
I think so too, especially with like the quarantine. That's like tough on kids at our age. Having to be there, having to, pretty much live in a bubble in Indianapolis if you go far. Not a lot of fans there. So, like, I think, and, honestly, this college basketball season has been so up and down all year, pretty much like it is every year in college basketball, which is why it's the best college sport there is. I think it's much better than college football. College basketball it has a nice place in my heart because it's just so random and I love it. So exciting all the time. And I can't wait for this tournament.
It's funny. I actually got into college basketball before I got into NBA.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so much fun to watch, man.
It is. Yeah, I gravitated toward Duke. They weren't that great when I started following them. I just love Coach K. I thought he was great.
Okay. Yeah, Duke wasn't that great. They won 26 games that year. Must have been a down year, man. 26 games.
I think they were – they were a good team. But, that was it was like when UNC was, with that team, like you said, with Ty Lawson, Hansbrough, Danny Green, Chad Long out represent. It was like that team. But Duke's team was like Gerald Henderson. It was like his freshman years when I started watching. Yeah. I was like a little after JJ Redick left. They really weren't that great. Waited a couple of years and then they won 2010 and 2015 and they are awful this year. They're really bad.
They are terrible.
Games. I think there's one going on right now. I don't even know what the score is.
Yeah, let's check that score right now.
They are time.
Dude, they're up 11.
All right. Yeah, they'll go on this weird run, and then the committee honestly would be biased to put them in. They don't deserve to
probably.
Be in. This is coming from a Duke fan. They are bad.
Yeah, they're not a good team.
No, it's been rough. I'm watching them this year. Oh my God. All right, that's gonna wrap it up here on Ball Don't Lie. Episode 40 is gonna be next week. It's gonna be pretty exciting for me and Matt here. We've come a long way. But we'll continue maybe giving you some March Madness updates as well because we're a basketball podcast. We could do that. Also, too, NBA games are going to be happening tonight as well. The season is back in swing. So thank you all for tuning in, and we'll catch you next week.
And don't forget that Adam Silver screwed the Sixers.
Thank you for watching this edition of Penn State Sports Night. If you're a fan of our content, please be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more clips. Also, follow us on Twitter at PSSN TV and on Instagram at PSU Sports Night to keep up with all the action. For all my colleagues, we are Penn State Sports Night.